Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm glad that most people have had some familiarity with CRS and looking forward to providing some additional information to those of you who maybe haven't heard much about it before either. There are definitely some benefits of the program, and Melissa and I and Adele will all go through some opportunities that you may find of interest as well. So as I mentioned, my name is Todd Tucker. I'm the FEMA Region VII CRS Coordinator here in Kansas City, Missouri. FEMA Region VII consists of Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. And again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about the National Flood Insurance Program, the Community Rating System, CRS. I also want to thank Adele, the state of Nebraska, for this opportunity, and Melissa with ISO for lending her expertise to us here today. Now, flooding is America's #1 natural disaster. Just 1 inch of water can result in about $25,000 of damage to most American homes, the average typical home. Most homeowners insurance policies don't cover flood insurance or flood damages. Many flood disasters aren't presidentially declared disasters, and most people don't have flood insurance. Now, the mission of the National Flood Insurance Program, or the NFIP, is to educate property owners about flood risk, provide federally backed flood insurance, generally unavailable in the private market, mitigate future flood losses through local floodplain regulation, and reduce the personal and national costs of disasters. There are about 5 million policyholders in the National Flood Insurance Program today, covering about 1.3 trillion in property, which is insured against flood damages. In the National Flood Insurance Program, there are about 23,000 communities that participate. And in the 2020 calendar year, we processed about 33,000 flood insurance claims, with an average, with a nearly $9 million payout for the year. In Nebraska in 2020, there are about 8,400 policies with about 1.8 billion of coverage for combined building and contents coverage in the state. And this is in the 416 participating communities in the National Flood Insurance Program in the state. Now, since 1977, there have been about 6,000 validated claims for building and content, with payouts of about $96 million. The average payout has been about $16,000 since 1977. I've been talking about flood insurance. Our flood insurance program is being revamped. Beginning October 1st of this year, just a few weeks ago, a new rating process was implemented. It's all now called Risk Rating 2.0. You may have heard about this. If not, there are lots of opportunities to learn more. There's not enough time today for me to get into Risk Rating 2.0 very much, but there are some connections to CRS that I'm going to highlight, and a little more information that maybe would be useful to know. Now, all existing policies will transition to Risk Rating 2.0 at renewal or on or after April 1st, 2022. So that's coming up fairly soon. And it's good to know too, if flood insurance premium goes down under Risk Rating 2.0, the policyholder will get that new lower premium immediately at renewal. If the premium goes up under Risk Rating 2.0, there is a protection under HFIA, the Homeowners Flood Insurance Affordability Act of 2013, that caps the annual premium increases. In general, premiums can increase no more than 15% per year, but there are some exceptions. But again, you can learn more about that if you're interested. And I'd like you to know that there are some beneficial changes under Risk Rating 2.0 for CRS. In the community rating system, federally backed flood insurance will continue to earn the national flood insurance rate discounts of 5 to 45% based on their community participation in the CRS credit classification. This discount will be applied uniformly to all policies throughout the CRS participating community, regardless of whether or not the structure is in the special flood hazard area. So looking at the table on the screen here, if you're familiar with the CRS, you've probably seen this table before. The furthest right column talks about structures that are outside the special flood hazard area and premium discounts that would be applied under the previous legacy insurance rating classification. That column is going away under Risk Rating 2.0. The only insurance discount that will be applied is the second to last column on the right, and everybody within the community will receive the maximum available discount for flood insurance premium discounts, whether or not you're located in the special flood hazard area. So just to kind of reiterate, what's not changing under Risk Rating 2.0, statutory rate caps on annual premium increases are not changing. That was limited under HFIA. Availability of premium discounts is not changing. That will remain in place. You may remember the newly mapped discount procedure under Risk Rating 2.0. This becomes a discount off the full risk premium. And there's still up to 15% annual glide path towards that full risk rate. So as we move forward, some insurance policies probably will increase up to 15% per year until they reach that full risk rate. Not all policies will receive that, but some will. Transfers of policy discounts to new property owners is still a procedure that's allowed under risk rating 2.0. Use of flood insurance rate maps for mandatory purchase and floodplain management is still a requirement. And the availability of premium discounts for community rating system participation, like we've been talking about, it's not only still available, but it's been enhanced. Now this brings us to the community rating system. CRS is a voluntary program that recognizes, encourages, and incentivizes community floodplain management practices that exceed the minimum requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program. Through the CRS, the best of the best in floodplain management are rewarded for implementing mitigation efforts that address these three goals as shown on the screen. As a result, flood insurance premium discounts are applied to reflect the reduced flood risk in that community. The CRS community has joined more than 1,500 communities nationwide that are committed to advancing floodplain management and risk reduction by implementing the higher standards identified in the community rating system. Now, there are multiple benefits to joining the CRS program, or even just adopting higher standards in order to protect people and property from flood hazard. Based on the accumulation of CRS activities or mitigation actions, businesses and residents within CRS communities receive discounts to the federally backed flood insurance premium. This discount ranges from 5% for a Class 9 community to 45% for a Class 1 community. I'd like to highlight that while we don't yet have a Class 1 community in FEMA Region VII, our 4 states, Tulsa, Oklahoma, as of October 1st, 2021, did attain a Class 1 rating. So their residents are receiving a 45% discount for their flood insurance premiums based on the efforts that the city has implemented to mitigate the flood risk. This premium reduction is a savings or money that can remain in the community instead of being spent on insurance premiums. We'll talk a little more about that here in a minute. In addition, through public information activities, community constituents are reminded that the community is working to protect them from flood losses, building local support, and improving flood protection measures. Now, under the CRS program, there are 4 series of activities from which communities may receive CRS credit. That's public information, mapping and regulations, flood damage reduction and higher standards, as well as warning and response. There are also 19 activities and 94 elements detailed in the Community Rating System Coordinators Manual. Implementing these various elements results in cumulative points awarded and ultimately reflect the flood insurance discounts that the communities insured are eligible to receive as a reward or incentive to CRS participation in advanced flood hazard mitigation in that community. So CRS is an incentive program rewarding communities for implementing best practices in mitigation. These activities and elements are detailed in the 2017 Coordinators Manual as amended. I'd like to note that under the current CRS Coordinators Manual issued in 2017, there is now a 2021 addendum that will remain in effect until the new edition is released. Both documents can be downloaded from FEMA's website. The addendum modified a few aspects of the 2017 Coordinators Manual. Let's see, it provides an opening for floodplain managers to engage and educate residents about local flood conditions. It also promotes cross-jurisdictional coordination, the application of nature-based solutions, and flood insurance promotion. The addendum also created 2 prerequisites for entry and advancement in CRS. Activity 310, which talks about elevation certificates or now construction certificates, became the Class 9 prerequisite where there's now a 90% accuracy rate required for these certificates. ISO will be auditing these annually to make sure that communities achieve that 90% correctness. And if there's issues or concerns with that, they'll contact the state and local FEMA regional office to help the community resolve those concerns. There's also a new freeboard requirement for a Class 8 or better. That's a 1-footer freeboard over and above the base flood elevation. The addendum also clarified credits for Activity 510, floodplain management planning, Activity 370, flood insurance promotion, Activity 450, stormwater management regulations. And for more about that, stay tuned. Adele and Melissa will talk about that in detail, or you can look it up online. Or if you'd like, you can feel free to contact me here at the FEMA regional office as well. Now, comparing CRS communities in the various FEMA regions across the nation, as of October 1st, 2021, FEMA Region VII has 73 communities taking advantage of CRS discounts. There are 2 new ones that were added in Kansas this last cycle as well. So that brings it to a total of 73. Now, 25 of these communities are Class 7, receiving a 15% discount on the federal backed flood insurance. We here in Region 7 also have 4 Class 5 communities receiving a 25% reduction on their flood insurance premium. This includes Cedar Falls, Iowa, City of Clive, Iowa, Platte County, Missouri, and Lincoln, Nebraska, getting a 25% reduction on the flood insurance premiums. Way to go, Lincoln. Now remember, under risk rating 2.0, the maximum available discounts for CRS communities will be applied equally to all policies in the community, whether or not the structure is located in the special flood hazard area. In addition to the CRS discounts on flood insurance premiums, studies show that higher standards reduce the cost of damages and disruption from flooding significantly. Every dollar spent in mitigation saves between $3 and $7 in recovery cost. So lastly, by applying the local multiplier effect, a concept used by economic development professionals to support community economic development investments, the savings realized in your community may be multiplied or recirculated 3 to 5 times in various industries before being spent on goods and services elsewhere. That's 3 to 5 times, and it may be taxable by your local taxes as well. Meaning the actual taxable value or return on investment for CRS participation may be 3 to 5 times higher than what you see here highlighted in yellow, which is a legacy $1 million CRS annual savings shown in our 4 states. Now I mentioned the legacy part regarding this is that's under our previous insurance discount process. It does not include a risk rating 2.0 process, which would apply the highest available discount to all policies in that community. So your savings may actually be significantly higher than this. In Nebraska, there are 6 CRS communities, one of which is a Class 5. As I mentioned, the city of Lincoln earning their citizens 25% deduction in flood insurance policies within the community. And most of our FEMA Region VII states have adopted higher standards, which can lead to CRS credits for your community. In Nebraska, the state has implemented higher standards for that provide for CRS credits, such as new residential structure, or no new residential structure in the floodway, and 1 foot of freeboard above the base flood elevation. That's a prerequisite for Class 8. It's a 10% discount. So what does that mean for communities that are interested in CRS in the state of Nebraska? It means there are potentially CRS credits available that the state and your community may already be implementing. And I'd like you to stay tuned, I guess, to hear more from Melissa about how you may apply that and get CRS discounts for your community. So now I think we have a poll.
Yes, thank you, Todd. Michelle has launched the poll. Now there's multiple questions in this poll, so make sure you answer both. The first one being, is a 90% accuracy rate for construction certificates, also called elevation certificates, the prerequisite for entry into CRS for a Class 9 community? And then answer question number 2, is 1 foot of freeboard a prerequisite for entry into CRS for a Class 8 community? And then hit submit once you've answered both questions.
All right, is that everybody there, Adele?
Yes, that's about 3/4 of the participants have responded.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and answer these 2 questions here. So the question number 1 is a 90% accuracy rate for construction certificates or previously known as elevation certificates the prerequisite for entry into CRS for a Class 9 community? The answer is yes. As of January 1st, 2021, under the addendum to the 2017 Coordinators Manual, prerequisite was established requiring elevation certificates, now known as construction certificates, receive a 90% accuracy rating. ISO will work with the community to help you achieve that. ISO will provide 2 different reviews, and when necessary, they'll coordinate with the state or local FEMA regional office to provide additional assistance to meet that CRS prerequisite. The second question is a 1 foot freeboard a prerequisite for entry in the CRS for a Class 8 community for a 10% discount? That is 100% true, and everybody got that one correct. So thank you very much. I'm glad that we're seeing the results of those polls, and that everybody's understanding there are prerequisites for a Class 8 or a Class 9 or a Class 8 community. Great, thank you. And then is there another poll on this one, Adele?
No, that's it, and we'll switch over to Melissa's presentation.
Hi guys, I am Melissa Mitchell. Many of you are familiar with me, and it's so glad to see so many new names on here, new floodplain administrators, coordinators, those that are interested in the CRS program, as well as a couple of our current CRS communities on here too. I am the CRS specialist for Minnesota down to Arkansas. I work out of 3 FEMA region territories and get to experience a little bit of everything from all over the place. My contact information is right here. If you don't have to take note about crsresources.org, I'm going to cover that in a couple more slides down the way. And then same for the FEMA.gov on how to access the CRS manual and the addendum. I am just going to do a light introduction into FEMA's community rating system program. I'm going to talk to you about some CRS credits and how to get started. And I'm really going to hone in on a CRS Class 9, what a 5% discount could look like for your community. I think we feel confident in saying almost all of you could get started in the CRS program with a Class 9 and a 5% discount. And I'm hoping that you're feeling charged after we cover some of this material to see if we can get you started in it. The CRS program aligns with the NFIP. It is an insurance-driven program. Our goals are to help reduce and avoid flood damage to insurable properties, that's residential, non-residential, strengthen and support the insurance aspects of the NFIP, and to foster comprehensive floodplain management to help support you guys in your procedures and your communication with multiple departments. Because we know that floodplain management is not just with one person or one department, it's really coordinated across many. I also acknowledge many of our floodplain administrators wear multiple hats. You guys are very busy, and we have a lot of respect for your time. In the CRS manual, there's over 600 pages. I don't ask for you to be familiar with all of those. I'm going to give you the tools and the tricks to navigate it in a very manageable way. It's broken down into 4 series. The 300 series, which is public information, that is outreach projects, website, library material. Mapping and regulations gets into your digital mapping systems, the GIS layers that you're using for your day-to-day floodplain management practices, and your adopted enforceable regulations, your ordinances, floodplain ordinances, stormwater management. Same for hazard mitigation plans, fall in activity 500 for flood damage reduction, buyout properties. And the 600 series is really focused on emergency management, so warning and response. Out of those 4 series, there's 19 activities. Under the activities are the elements, and the elements are where we start to build credit to reach your CRS potential. For every 500 points that we verify, it's an additional 5% discount that builds for you. So all of our communities that participate in the NFIP are Class 10 community, which means you participate, but there's no CRS discount applied. When we start to get to the Class 9 to the Class 1s, our numbering system works backwards. But as you can see, we go from a 5% discount to a 45% discount. Nationwide, there are currently 2 CRS Class 1 communities, one in Oklahoma and one in Northern California, and they are receiving the maximum discount available at 45% for their policyholders. As Todd shared, we have 6 CRS communities in the state of Nebraska. Lincoln is your CRS Class 5 community. And what I'm showing you here is a what if statement. This one is specific to Lincoln. It shows their CRS Class 5 and it breaks down their policy count. So they have a total of close to 1,100 policies. And then within their MAP special flood hazard area, they have 756. In their X zone, they have 146. And then outside of that, their preferred risk policies, 177. So when we come down and look at what that means for the city of Lincoln, they have an annual savings of $405,000 per year for their citizens that carry flood insurance policies under the NFIP. This is significant, and it's very exciting for us to be able to share this information. Now, as Todd had shared, WIS 2.0 is now eliminating these columns all of these policies, there are over 1,000 policies that they have, their CRS discount will now apply equally to everybody. This is exciting because up to this point, preferred risk policies did not receive the CRS discount. Now under Risk 2.0, City of Lincoln, for example, these 177 policyholders will now receive a CRS discount. I'm so very excited to see this change and that their 25% goes across the board now. If this is a document that you're interested in for your community, a little snapshot of your policy count and where the CRS savings would apply to you, please feel free to shoot me an email. I just need to know your community name. Takes me a couple minutes to pull it up and help walk you through it, but we're always happy to show you where your CRS savings would apply to you. Now at this time, I don't have a table that shows the transition into Risk 2.0. Your tables will show just that as it is here, what is your map floodplain, your X zone, and your preferred risk policies. But hopefully here in the future, we'll be able to show you the transition under Risk 2.0 where the discount has shifted for us. Again, if you'd like a copy of your what if statement, please just shoot me an email. So we have two Melissas that work in Nebraska. I am charged with helping new applications, modifications, and verification visits. Our CRS programs are a 3-year program or a 5-year program, depending on your CRS class. So I kind of go in and do all the technical work with you and help you get through the application process. Also available for training, webinars, conferences, one-on-ones, anything that you need CRS support-wise, I'm here to assist you. Melissa James is our resource specialist. As Todd mentioned, we have an annual review of your construction certificates. So all CRS communities collect, review, and maintain elevation certificates, wet flood proofing certificates, and dry flood proofing. Those are reviewed on an annual basis now, and those are done with Melissa James. And then she's also charged with our annual recertifications. So as I mentioned, say for example, as a CRS Class 9, you would have a 5-year run on your CRS classification. After we get your initial application in, you have an annual recertification, which verifies to FEMA region that you're maintaining the activities that credit was awarded to. And so Melissa James assists with the annual recertifications. I'm certainly here to help, during that phase as well. But we divide and conquer in regards to getting you started and the maintenance in that 5-year window. Now we do have 2 documents that we're going to reference. They go hand in hand for you. If you are an existing CRS community, this applies to you as well as communities interested in joining us. We are currently under the 2017 CRS Manual, and in January, the 2021 Addendum came online. Those now go, as I mentioned, they coordinate together. So under the CRS Manual, when you're looking at an activity, I do need you to cross-reference that into the addendum to make sure that you're referencing the most up-to-date information and credit criteria. And then under the 2021 Addendum, we did have some opportunity for new credits, and that's super exciting for us too. So just like many other programs, there are prereqs to be a CRS community. The first one is that you're in good standing with the National Flood Insurance Program, the NFIP. As I mentioned, elevation certificates, wet flood proofing, dry flood proofing, all of our communities collect, review, and maintain to a higher standard. If your community has any repetitive loss properties, there's an activity that's required with it. And then as you grow in the CRS program, the prereqs grow as well. So FEMA.gov/community rating system, and Michelle put that link in the chat box for you too. That is where you can download the 2017 manual as well as the addendum to the 2021. And then there's a really quick kind of Q&A spreadsheet that you could take a look at as well. Now, when we're using these 2 documents together, the best way to navigate them is under the 2017 manual. When you are panning through it, if there is a bold black bar next to that paragraph, that means there's an update to reference in the addendum. So it's a really quick reference when you're looking at the manual to say, oh, I've got a black bar, let me hop over to the addendum. And that just makes a quick connection between the 2. Now let's talk about being in good standing with the National Flood Insurance Program, our first prereq. What that means is if you are interested in joining the CRS program, you would provide ISO, the state and region, a letter of interest. That letter of interest would kick off a community assistant visit, a CAV. Many of you have had CACs and CAVs before, so you're probably pretty familiar with it. But state and or FEMA region will come in, and I hate to use the word audit, but they do an audit. They're looking that you are enforcing your regulations, that you are enforcing your minimum standards for the NFIP, have a conversation about your floodplain management program and procedures. When your CAV is completed, that goes to FEMA Region VII, and Todd takes a look at it and says, you guys have a green light to move forward in the CRS program. Once I have that green light from your CAV, that's when we really get going on your CRS application. I keep coming back to elevation certificates. This has always been a critical item for the CRS program, all the way back to the start. Previously, your elevation certificates were used to rate your insurance policies. Under Risk 2.0, they are not required, but they are encouraged. So for CRS purpose, we continue to look at your elevation certificates, your wet flood proofing and dry flood proofing as a way to verify you are enforcing your regulations and that you're enforcing the minimum NFIP standards that are in place. So we look at it from an enforcement and compliance perspective, not necessarily from the insurance perspective. Certainly those that are requiring our elevation certificates, that is going to help. It is required, but that's going to help that property owner have a more accurately rated insurance policy. So it's super big deal in the CRS program. Activity 310 is a very heavy prereq. As Todd mentioned, this is something that is reviewed on an annual basis now. Prior to the 2021 addendum, we were looking at them at a 5-year pocket. Now it's done every year with your annual recertification. The 90% correct rate has always been there, but it is tightened up that we've got 2 reviews under your annual recertification to hit that 90% threshold. Now, I will say in our territory, we are a low to no to very minimal development in the floodplain. So we don't really have a true 10% buffer that's represented. So for many of our CRS communities in Region 7, that's 1 of 1, 4 of 4. So it's super critical to stay on top of those. You have all the resources to you at the state level, at region with ISO. We're happy to help you through this so it doesn't feel any pressure, especially for communities that are low to no development. This is not something that is an everyday conversation or an everyday review for you. So I really just like to give a shout out to all the support that you have here in Region 7. And then if by chance we have any repetitive loss properties, that would mean that one parcel has had 2 or more insurance claims. It is a requirement that we are going to take a look at that repetitive loss property, what the source of flooding may be, and then we'll have an annual mailing exercise that will go out to that area. Repetitive loss properties are a drain to the NFIP. What that means is they are receiving a flood insurance claim payout, but not necessarily mitigating what the problem may be. So that's why as a community, we work with you to take a look at the source of flooding. It's very likely that you might have projects that are ongoing that might mitigate this, either with public works or stormwater. So it's a really just great conversation that we're having with you, just to acknowledge what we have going on in the community, what that source of flooding may be. And while we look towards things in the future, are there mitigation actions? And I'm sorry, if by chance you have over 50 repetitive loss properties, as I mentioned, the more that you grow in the CRS program, so do the prereqs. But if we have more than 50 repetitive loss properties, there is a requirement to have an adopted floodplain management plan, hazard mitigation plan, and or repetitive loss area analysis. Now, under the CRS manual on page 210-1, there's a summary of the prereqs while you grow in the CRS program. You'll see Class 9, you don't have a freeboard requirement. Minimum NFIP is 2 base flood elevation or higher. CRS Class 6 communities must have building codes adopted and in place and participate in the B6 program, which is the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. Class 4 communities have to meet all of our 6 and our 9 prereqs. That also includes watershed management planning. And then CRS Class 1s, I'm not even going to touch this long list of prereqs, but their 45% discount is well deserved. Under the addendum, though, when we look at your Class 9 prereq, we have to have build to the base flood elevation or higher. That's a minimum NFIP standard. Now, under the 2021 addendum, for CRS Class 8 or higher communities, a 1-foot freeboard requirement is in place. For many of our communities, we have freeboard already there. What's going to apply to you is taking a look at your language. There might be some updates and some clarifications between practice and what's enforceable. So we will definitely take a look at your ordinances before we get too far into things to make sure if there's something that needs to be updated, we can get that taken care of. But Nebraska does have a 1-foot freeboard. It's just going to be clarification on that enforcement. Getting started, as I mentioned, you have amazing resources in Region 7. Adele, Todd, myself, Michelle, certainly at this point, she's getting fluid in CRS too. We are all here to chat with you and to really look at what you're doing in your floodplain management practice and procedures, and to say, hey, we have credit, or we could have credit, or maybe this is something we could work towards. This program is really meant to be a growing opportunity. You can come in as a Class 9 and set goals to move to an 8 or a 7. Either way, once we get started, we're pretty comfortable in giving you an idea of where you may fall big picture wise, and then realistically what works best for you to get started with staffing, timing, resources. The program outside of the prereqs is a la carte. So when we talk about 94 elements, it's 94 opportunities for credit. You really get to pick and choose how you build your CRS discount in your program. This is really nice because our CRS coordinators, they're city clerks, floodplain administrators, building codes, stormwater management, emergency. I have some CRS coordinators that are the mayors of their cities. So this is the nice thing about it being an a la carte program, is you really get to come in with what you are most familiar with and comfortable. Because it is a 5-year program, we really ask that you have ownership of what we're using for credit, so that we're not in a position where we'll have a loss of credit that could impact your discount for your citizens. For example, a sample CRS Class 9, when we look at things that you probably already have in place. As I mentioned, the prereq for elevation certificates, wet flood proofing and dry flood proofing is there. That's a 38-point start. Activity 330 for outreach projects. This is static material, newsletter, utility bill inserts, presentations, social media efforts. There's a combination of ways that we could build up credit, but odds are pretty good we can get you to the full 200 points there. As I mentioned, Nebraska has a 1-foot freeboard, so there's 100 points there. And activity 440 is really geared towards our digital maps, rather they're internal, public mapping. This could be city, county, state. As long as your digital mapping is not a FEMA source, so FEMA Map Service Center or their national hazards layer, you have up to 160 points there available, and we can use multiple sources to build that credit. And then if by chance we have any repetitive loss properties, we are required to go through the exercise, but there's not credit associated with that. So just the sample between elevation certificates, outreach projects, freeboard, your building codes, and your GIS mapping, we're at a baseline of 546 points. Your CRS Class 9 is sitting there for you. Another combination, especially in the Lincoln, Omaha area, in the Papio River, hazard mitigation plans. They're scoring anywhere from 180 to 200 points. So even if we were to swap something out and to take a look at your mitigation plan, you very well could have half of a CRS class there in your mitigation plan. So fun combination of things to work through. You have some great resources online as well. CRSresources.org is a great page to go to for contact information with all of your regions, your specialists, supportive material guidance, and training opportunities. We have 1-hour webinars that are no cost to anybody who signs up for them, but they're a really great way just to take a snapshot of what's going on a specific subject. So for example, preparing for your annual recertification, Introduction to CRS. We'll have webinars on the 2021 addendum, new credits, all that fun stuff. I really encourage you to hop on there and sign up for what we've got planned for the rest of the year. I'm actually going to flip over to the CRS page, hopefully successfully, and just kind of navigate that for you so we can have a quick snapshot of sharing what those resources look like. Can I get a hand wave that are you able to see the CRS resources page? Okay. So as I mentioned, your CRS manual and the addendum are on FEMA.gov, and your CRS resources at crsresources.org. This is broken down by your series and tabs. So it's a really nice way to just kind of hop in and not feel overwhelmed by anything. But if we're looking just for elevation certificate material, we have a section right here. If we're going to come in and we want to get some more information about hazard mitigation plans, scoring, that's there as well. When we pop over to training and videos, this is where you're able to hop on here and sign up for those 1-hour webinars. But as you scroll down, and of course, they're not, there they go. We have some really great videos that are pre-recorded for you to hop on and reference at any time. As I mentioned, in our territory, development in the floodplain is low to none. It's very minimal. So these are nice little things to hop on here just as a gentle reminder of what we're looking for with elevation certificates. There are also great videos to share with your counterparts or other departments. It's not uncommon. Building inspections is issuing the permits. They might get the elevation certificate before it's moved over to the planner that's reviewing them or moved over to the engineer that's reviewing them. So this is just some really great information to share. As I mentioned, floodplain management's not just in one department typically. So if we can help share this information, it really does help make a smoother process for everybody. And then Success with CRS is a really great tool. As I mentioned, if you'd like to request your what if statement that shows your policy count and where your CRS discount would apply, if you pair that with Success with CRS, this is a really great website to share with your directors and your community CEO when we're talking about CRS and the coordination between the discount that your citizens receive, but also the tools that are in place to help with your floodplain management procedures and practices. Shawnee, City of Shawnee in Kansas is on here. There are some larger CRS communities, but there's really great feedback, really great encouraging stories that communities have had success with CRS. So it's definitely something that we love to share with when we're talking CRS outside of just our department and just our floodplain managers. This concludes my portion. I could certainly talk your ears off for another 4 hours, but if there is anything that I can help you with or any questions you have, or you're just interested in just learning more, please reach out. I am more than happy to spend some time with you. Even when we have a change of staff, maybe the CRS coordinator has left the community and we have a new coordinator, let's chit chat and get you comfortable.
Okay, great. So a little bit about CRS in Nebraska. As was stated earlier, we've got a known hazard of flooding. It's the most frequently reported hazard in the state of Nebraska. And unfortunately, this hazard is only going to increase. Our climate models are showing that Nebraska is getting wetter. Our storm events are going to continue to increase in frequency, meaning we'll get more of them at shorter intervals. They're going to increase in scale and intensity, meaning more rainfall in shorter amounts of time. And they're also going to decrease in predictability, meaning we won't be able to forecast as accurately. Now, already, Nebraska has seen a 16% increase in precipitation since 1960. So, and that trend is going to continue. So when you're investing and making the effort to mitigate for floods and protect your citizens and your property from flood risk, it's worthwhile, and this issue is not going to go away. Okay, and there's also benefits to mitigating for flood risk. It's going to safeguard lives and property of your residents, it helps maintain the quality of life in your community, and it improves your community's overall resilience. And as we've been discussing today, if you're in CRS, you can decrease the cost of flood insurance. So this is an analogy that Melissa shared with me earlier, likening CRS and your floodplain management program to a multi-tier cake. At the foundation, you've got the Nebraska revised statute and your NFIP minimum standards. These, by adopting a model ordinance from the state of Nebraska, you've got an ordinance that already meets NFIP and Nebraska's minimum standards and has baked into it higher standards as well. On top of that foundation of a solid floodplain management program, you can add CRS for added benefit and reward. I went through the manual and tried to pull out several areas where there's pretty readily accessible points for communities in Nebraska by virtue of things you're already doing or by virtue of things the state's already doing and you have free access to. So just to review those, in Activity 370, which is flood insurance promotion, we've revamped our website so that it's got flood insurance brochures freely available. So if you promote those or distribute those in addition to your coverage improvement plan for your community, you'll be able to get additional points towards technical assistance in that category. In 410, you may be eligible for new study credit by virtue of the free base flood elevation determination service that DNR provides to all NFIP communities in the state. We also have many ongoing flood hazard mapping projects within which your community might be participating and other studies that we've got going on. For item 420, open space preservation, these asterisk and italicized items are services which DNR is willing to provide to your community as you launch your CRS program. We can help you demonstrate that you are keeping flood-prone lands free of development through maps that we will help create for you, as well as maps of open space, but also maps of low-density zoning areas. We understand that not all communities have this capacity for visualizing these areas, but we're happy to help you do that. With regards to higher regulatory standards, adherence to these higher regulatory standards, such as the ones noted, the floodway restrictions, prohibition of storage, freeboard requirement, these are already baked into your community's ordinance if you use the state's model ordinances. And they, as Melissa said, they may need only minor adjustments to receive credit in this area. Also, the state's adopted building code statewide, so you just simply need to demonstrate that you're enforcing them. With regards to flood data maintenance, we've talked a lot this year about our new interactive map. We've got an online GIS map, and Michelle's just put the link in the chat there, where anyone can search for the most current flood risk information by community, section, township, or range, and address. It also links to your base flood elevation determinations. It links to your flood insurance rate maps. It will link to letters of map change. You can also print off maps from this interface. So if you get an inquiry from your community member, they want to know if their property's in the floodplain, you can pull up the interactive map and print off a map for them showing the special flood hazardous area overlaid with an aerial image of their property. So utilizing this tool and making it available to your community can garner your community's points. And all you did was make it accessible. You didn't have to create or maintain this GIS database. Oh, and 510, floodplain management planning. This is where those hazard mitigation plans can really garner you a lot of points. Is your jurisdiction a participant in your natural resource district or emergency management district's FEMA approved multi-hazard mitigation plan? If so, then you may have access up to 382 points. Those plans just have to have followed an appropriate procedure. Nebraska has robust coverage of multi-jurisdictional multi-hazard mitigation plans. There's a good chance that your community is participating in one. and you got some access to points. There's also in the addendum a new substantial damage management plan credit available. Now, if you follow the steps in the addendum and then just adopt the procedures that we have in the substantial damage assessment handbook, which is also available at all times on the DNR website, and you pre-populate your substantial damage estimator tool, which I know we have instructed every community to do during our CACs. If you pre-populate that tool with your special flood hazard area records, you should be able to get 90 points, just like that. You just have to follow the steps. You don't have to produce actually really any new content. It's all there for you. And again, asterisk items are services which we'd like to provide to you to launch your CRS program. So I have listed here repetitive loss area analysis. This is something that DNR can provide as a service to you. We just need it requested through the CRS application process. And then finally, there's our dam safety program within the state of Nebraska. Just thanks to that program being in place, you got access to 45 points. So, and if you're actually in the inundation area of a high hazard dam, which most communities along the Platte River are, will be able to certify that with a letter from the state dam safety program and get you points there. So if you're interested in CRS, as Melissa mentioned, set up that preliminary credit assessment. We'll initiate a CAV either through FEMA Region VII and through the state. These do take some planning, and then also write your letter of interest to FEMA Region VII. Because the CAV takes a little bit of time, you may do the letter and the CAV concurrently, or initiate one and then the other. But know that it's a joint procedure there, and then you'll get your initial audit for receiving for your credit assessment for CRS. One thing we'd really like to see happen in Nebraska is a joint county-city application to CRS. It's possible for jurisdictions to collaboratively join the CRS, and I know that we have a lot of joint floodplain management activity in the state. So especially in our eastern state part of the state, definitely consider whether you'd like to collaborate with your county or a community within your county to pursue CRS together. You'll get a lot of mutual benefit from a working relationship that's already there. All right, I've got a question. Earlier we mentioned repetitive loss information and a repetitive loss count. How does the community get information about whether they have repetitive loss properties in their jurisdiction?
Sure. So right now we can take a quick look at counts. The data itself does have to be requested formally through FEMA Region VII. And we have a template and some documents that the community can use to make that formal request. That would go to Todd Tucker with Region VII and Chris Parsons, and then they would get that back to you. I'll have Todd kind of touch base on the lag time there. So right now we can just take a quick see to see if we have any. If we don't have any, then there's no data to request. If we do, then we would follow the protocol through Region VII for it.
Anything you'd like to add, Todd?
No, that's exactly right. You could forward that request for information to myself and Chris Parsons. Chris Parsons is our regional flood insurance liaison. He's the lead for that, but I do work with him to try to facilitate getting that information. And just for informational purposes, there has been some challenges to getting that in the last few years. FEMA has hired additional staff to help facilitate securing that information and providing it to our communities. And we should have some new guidance coming out here in the near future about the best methodology. But for now, just go ahead and reach out to Chris and I. You can copy Melissa on that as well, and Adele, and we'll try to figure out the best way we can get you the information.
Okay, great.
And Adele, I do want to piggyback on this. When you guys are requesting your repetitive loss data, I do want to emphasize it is protected by the Privacy Act, which means it can stay in-house only, cannot be made public, maps cannot be published. If anything goes to any of your governing bodies, there's data that needs to be redacted. So I really can't emphasize enough the importance of when you do receive it, you do need to keep it in a manner that maybe it's passcode protected, anything along those lines that is not public outside of internal use only.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, and feel free to contact any of us if you have any questions regarding CRS, and we look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you very much.